Hollow Creek, a town of just under 7,000 people, nestled among winding backroads, oak trees, and weathered barns. A town where everyone knows everyone. A town where the loudest noise on most nights is the crickets in the fields. But on the night of October 12, 2016, Hollow Creek was anything but quiet. Archival-style dramatizations flicker. Police radios crackling, officers hurrying under umbrellas, lightning tearing across the sky. At 10:47 p.m., police dispatch received a frantic 911 call from a neighbor reporting a scream, followed by silence. Within minutes, the Hollow Creek Police Department descended on a modest white house at the edge of town. Rain poured, boots squelched in mud, police chatter filled the night. One detective later recalled in an interview, "We entered through the front door. It was unlocked. Inside, the living room told us immediately, something terrible had happened here." The dramatization reveals the crime scene. A toppled wine glass, a shattered phone, and Clara Avery's lifeless body on the rug, a scarf pulled tight around her neck. The storm that swept across Hollow Creek had left its mark. But it wasn't the weather that killed Clara Avery. Someone had been in that house. Someone Clara trusted enough to let inside. Title card fades in, Murder 360, The Hollow Creek Mystery. To understand what happened that night, investigators first had to understand Clara Avery. And to know Clara, you had to step inside the rhythms of Hollow Creek itself. The story shifts to portraits of small-town life. The Hollow Creek Diner, the town square, Clara laughing in photos with friends. A friend remembered her fondly. Clara, she had this energy about her. Like she wasn't afraid of anything. She'd ask questions no one else would. Sometimes I'd tell her, "Clara, you're going to get yourself in trouble someday." She'd just laugh. Clara, 26 years old, was raised in Hollow Creek. She lived with her mother Ellen until recently moving into her own place. Her father had died when she was 12. She worked at the diner but had ambitions beyond it. Clara kept notebooks full of clippings, notes, and interviews, her personal truth project. Her friends called her fearless. Her family called her stubborn. But the people who really knew her said Clara was obsessed. Obsessed with uncovering secrets, exposing lies, and chasing the truth. Her relationships painted a picture of turbulence. Paul Avery, her brother, had once been close but had grown resentful. He accused Clara of being self-righteous, of digging into business that wasn't hers. Ethan Cole, her boyfriend, was insecure and controlling. Their relationship was rocky, neighbors recalled loud fights. Marissa Kane, her best friend since childhood, had grown distant. Clara's independence and relentless pursuit of her projects left Marissa feeling pushed aside. There were also red flags before her death. Neighbors heard late-night phone calls. Clara confided to a co-worker about someone following me. She wrote in her diary, "If something happens to me, it won't be an accident." Clara Avery was full of life. But in the weeks before her death, she seemed to know that life was in danger. Detectives pieced together Clara's last hours like fragments of a puzzle. But the pieces didn't fit neatly, and the storm only made it harder. The living room showed signs of a struggle. A wine bottle sat uncorked, 2 glasses out, 1 half empty. Clara's phone lay shattered near the couch. A chair was overturned. Her body lay on the rug, scarf pulled tightly around her neck. Forensics collected fingerprints on the wine glass, DNA under Clara's fingernails, and a partial muddy shoe print near the back door. The coroner determined she died between 9:45 and 10:15 p.m. Cause of death, strangulation. Defensive wounds suggested she fought back. This wasn't a random intruder. Detectives concluded Clara let her killer inside. Neighbors' accounts conflicted. One swore she heard a woman scream. Another claimed the wind was howling so loudly, it could have been anything. A third insisted he saw someone leaving in a dark hooded jacket, but the rain obscured his view. One detective summed it up. "We didn't have a single clear timeline. We had 4 different versions of events from 4 different people. That's what made it so difficult. The only thing everyone agreed on? Something terrible happened in that house." For people quickly rose to the top of the suspect list. Each one knew Clara. Each one had reason to resent her. And each one's story didn't quite add up. Ethan Cole, the boyfriend, 28 years old, working construction. Their relationship had been volatile. Police once called for a domestic dispute. On the night of the murder, Ethan claimed he was at a bar with friends. But security footage later showed he didn't arrive until nearly 11, after Clara's estimated time of death. His fingerprints were on the wine glass, but as her boyfriend, that wasn't unusual. Ethan's alibi had holes. And jealousy can be a powerful motive. Paul Avery, the brother. 30 years old, unemployed, known for heavy drinking. He had recently argued with Clara about their late father's inheritance. Witnesses recalled seeing Paul storm out of Clara's house days before her death. When police interviewed him, he had visible scratches on his arm. He claimed they came from working on his truck. Family fights can turn bitter. But could Paul's anger have turned deadly? Marissa Kane, the best friend. 26, Clara's closest friend since childhood. In interviews, Marissa described feeling abandoned when Clara pulled away in recent years. She admitted they argued the week before the murder. Clara's diary contained an entry. Marissa has been acting strange. Like she resents me. Sometimes the deepest betrayals come from the people closest to us. And Darren Holt, the handyman. 34, Hollow Creek local with a criminal past, petty theft, drug charges. Known around town as unreliable, volatile. Clara had been asking questions about him, linking him to thefts and shady deals. Darren denied knowing Clara well, but several people said they saw her talking to him. For Darren Holt, trouble was a way of life. And Clara may have uncovered something he didn't want exposed. The suspects were interrogated in tense sessions. Ethan insisted. Yeah, I was at the bar. Ask anyone. After a pause, he added. Okay, maybe I wasn't there until later. But I didn't hurt Clara. I loved her. Paul bristled with anger. You think I killed my own sister? We argued, yeah. But she was family. Those scratches? From my truck engine. Not from Clara. Marissa wept. Clara and I fought, but I could never hurt her. She was my best friend. Even when she pushed me away. Darren smirked through his interview. Clara Avery? She was always sticking her nose where it didn't belong. But I didn't kill her. You cops just want someone to blame. For suspects. For motives. But one killer. As detectives dug deeper, the storm clouds over Hollow Creek were only just beginning to break. Clara Avery's death left a town in mourning. But as forensics began to return, the case would take a shocking turn. One man's name would rise to the top. And soon a confession would change everything. The storm may have washed away some clues. But not all of them. Beneath Clara's fingernails, forensic scientists recovered a partial DNA profile. It wasn't enough for a complete picture, but what it did show pointed investigators straight at one name, Darren Holt. Investigators bagged evidence and compared the findings. Darren's DNA matched what little was found under Clara's nails. And when prints were lifted from the half-empty wine glass on her table, they matched Darren too. A grainy surveillance video from a nearby gas station captured him walking past just after 9:30 that night. The timeline was closing in. A detective later explained, when we put the pieces together, the DNA, the prints, the video, everything pointed to Darren Holt. It wasn't airtight, but the case was building. What came next altered the course of the investigation. On October 19th, just 1 week after Clara's murder, detectives brought Darren in for questioning once again. He'd denied involvement before. But after 6 hours in a small interrogation room, something broke. You were there, Darren. We've got your prints. We've got your DNA. Stop lying, one detective pressed. After a long pause, Darren muttered. She wouldn't stop asking questions. I just wanted her to shut up. So you strangled her? I didn't mean for it to go that far. It wasn't a full confession. It wasn't even clear. But to investigators, it was enough. Darren Holt was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Yet from the very start, questions began to emerge. A defense attorney pushed back. That so-called confession? It came after hours of threats, manipulation, and psychological pressure. Darren was exhausted, confused, and cornered. That is not justice. That is coercion. While Darren sat in a jail cell, the storm outside the courthouse only grew stronger. Because the more detectives learned about the other suspects, the less certain the case against Darren seemed. New revelations shook the investigation. Ethan, the boyfriend, had lied about when he arrived at the bar that night. Friends admitted he looked agitated and distracted. When pressed, Ethan admitted he and Clara fought just hours before her death. Paul, Clara's brother, had his own secret. Witnesses recalled him screaming at Clara outside her house just days before she was killed. A store clerk swore he saw Paul buying alcohol the very night of the murder, contradicting Paul's claim he was home fixing his truck. And Clara's diary revealed her unease about Marissa, her childhood best friend. One chilling entry read, I think Marissa hates me now. I don't know why. With every new revelation, suspicion rippled outward. Clara's life had been filled with tension, secrets, and fractured relationships. Yet only one man sat in handcuffs. Darren Holt. Was he the killer? Or just the easiest target? For Hollow Creek, Darren's trial was more than a legal battle. It was theater. Families took sides. Neighbors argued in diners and church halls. And for the Avery family, it was the moment they had been waiting for. The prosecution told a simple story. Darren killed Clara to silence her. DNA under her fingernails. Fingerprints on the wine glass. A confession caught on tape. The defense painted a different picture. A man pressured into a false confession, evidence that proved only contact, not murder, and a web of other suspects with stronger motives. Witness after witness took the stand. Ethan admitted to lying but swore he left Clara alive. Paul admitted to his violent argument but denied ever laying a hand on her. Marissa wept under questioning, insisting she loved Clara, even as the diary suggested otherwise. Experts clashed over the reliability of the DNA. One testified it was enough to prove Darren's guilt. Another said it was too partial to be trusted. The jury wasn't just weighing evidence. They were weighing shadows, memories, half-truths, and doubt. After 2 tense days of deliberation, the jury filed back into the courtroom. Reporters leaned forward. Clara's mother clutched a handkerchief. Darren stared straight ahead, expressionless. The foreperson stood and read the verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. Gasps filled the room. Darren's mother broke down in tears. The Avery family embraced. Darren was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Justice, it seemed, had been served. But Hollow Creek remained divided. Some were convinced the right man was behind bars. Others whispered in hushed tones that the real killer was still out there. The Avery family grieved privately. Clara's mother, Ellen, started the Clara Avery Foundation, providing scholarships for young women who dreamed of becoming journalists. Paul spiraled into alcoholism, tormented by the last fight he had with his sister. Ethan quietly left town. Marissa faded into obscurity, drifting away from public life. Darren's family fought back. They launched appeals, joined by wrongful conviction advocates who believed his confession was false and the evidence too thin. Soon, podcasts, YouTube videos, and blogs lit up with theories. Was Ethan the real killer, jealous and controlling? Did Paul finally snap in a drunken rage? Or was Marissa consumed by envy of a friend who had outgrown her? To the justice system, Darren Holt was guilty. But to many in Hollow Creek, the case was far from closed. 10 years passed. The Avery family still mourned. Darren remained behind bars, still swearing his innocence. On the anniversary of Clara's death, Hollow Creek held 2 separate vigils. One honored Clara with candles, prayers, and speeches about her bravery. The other protested Darren's conviction, with signs that read "Free Darren" and "Wrong man, wrong cell." 10 years later, the same storm still hung over Hollow Creek. Was justice truly served? Or did Clara's real killer slip through the cracks? 2 truths remained. One young woman was gone, and one man sat in a prison cell swearing he didn't kill her. In the end, Clara Avery's voice was silenced, but her shadow still speaks.